Beast is directed by Balthazar Kormacher and stars Idris Elba, Sharlto Copley, and among others. And in this story, it deals with Idris Elba's character, who's a doctor that comes into Africa with his daughters in order to basically spend some more quality time with them after some tragedy happens in his life in the past. And he ends up coming across Sharlto Copley's character, who's a friend of his, and they end up basically having to survive from a vicious lion. That's the general premise. And now here's a little backstory. Now this movie was directed by Balthazar Korm. I'm sorry if I can't get his name right. Balthazar Kormacher, who directed actually a really good movie I enjoyed, which was Everest from 2015. And from the previews, it did kind of have me kind of a vibe of a film that I remember growing up with, and recently watched again after so long, which was this movie right here that I own on DVD, which is The Ghost in the Darkness. Now, if you've seen this movie, it kind of has a similar premise where you have essentially wild animals essentially trying to attack in the jungle and everything, and also dealing with its two leads as well in that film. But the only difference is in this one, it's more about a family that's trying to survive, as opposed in that movie that's trying to also do it for with a big game hunter and everything. And so, but I got vibes from that going into the trailers of this, because it kind of had that kind of like survivalist type of feel mixed in with like Cujo, where they're having to basically try to survive mostly in one location. And just the novelty of seeing Idris Elba, fighting a lion and everything, that actually got me interested as well with it. And so upon seeing the film, I can say that the movie is a decent watch. It's definitely something I can see why they release in theaters, because it definitely does have the aesthetics for it. It's not a great movie by any means, but it is definitely a fun, quick pace, very to its point premise that doesn't overdraw its welcome. And so, to get my pros out of the way, I really enjoyed the cast in this. I thought Idris Elba and Sharlto Copley were fantastic in this. They really carried the movie a lot with them throughout, and they were able to really put you in the predicament of these guys that are trying to survive along with Idris Elba's kids and everything. And you're watching it in the way that you get into their characters. The beginning of it, it shows a lot of the friendship that they have throughout the movie and stuff. And while it could have been a whole lot more with them and everything, developing more with them, I still enjoyed their presence on screen together, and I really enjoyed the way that the movie takes it to where Idris Elba is trying to fight hard for his kids and stuff and trying to survive. And some of a lot of the stuff that he tries to do to not only protect his kids, but also trying to go to the extreme in order to attempt to think smart for the lion, is also interesting to watch as well as the movie goes along. And then the rest of the pros, I can say I really enjoyed the direction in this. There's a lot of great tracking shots and a lot of great ways the camera moves in this, where for the most part there are instances where you're having characters that are essentially walking around and the camera's like behind them and stuff, and you're basically following them in a lot of scenes that are almost shot like they're one take. And I really like the way that those are playing out a lot of points, and it builds tension in a very good way. Especially, not going to go into detail, but there's a part where the camera's kind of swooping around, and you're kind of getting the point of view of the characters in place while it's building tension and stuff with the lion about to attack its prey and everything. I like the way that it was building up. I like the way that the tension moves at that in a great, very cinematic way with it. The other appreciative things I like too is I like the way that the lion looked in this, and some of the other creatures that they have in the film, the other lions that look in the film as well. For the most part, I thought the CGI worked. There are some noticeable CGI at times that looks kind of not so good, but for the most part, when the scenes are shot at nighttime or in spots where they use it enough, it did look pretty reminiscent of the effects they used for the live action remake of The Lion King. And I mean that in a good way, because even though I didn't care for The Lion King remake that much, I still admire its effects that they were using to make them very realistic. And this one, I can say that as a compliment to that, in that they actually do, in times, do look like they would be like real lions and stuff. and then there's some like gruesome stuff in this film that I actually was shocked that they showcase, especially in the beginning. I won't go into detail, but let's just say when there's stuff that happens at the beginning of the film that you could tell that there was some practical effects they used that I thought was really spot on. And then the rest of the movie, the way that it builds at a very fast pace and keeping it very going from point A to point B, it's what you kind of expect with this kind of movie because it is only an hour and a half, and so it doesn't overstay its welcome in that regard. If I have like any minor cons, I will say the movie does kind of suffer from some questionable choices that the daughter character does throughout the film. That does end up basically causing a very bad writing aspect. That falters more on the bad writing than it does with really the acting necessarily because. I thought the older daughter in this, I thought that she did have a couple scenes where it seemed like she was going a little bit like bringing up stuff that seems out of nowhere, like her questioning her dad about about the past, like why with him and her mother and everything, and it just felt like the way that she delivered her lines and the way that the scene was kind of played out with those, it really felt out of place, and it made it seem like it did belong in these kind of scenes like that. And also her character just seemed like, well, it does it doesn't do it a whole lot, but there are a few scenes where she does make some pretty dumb decisions that end up basically turning into what you expect when it turns into regular cliches with a lot of these horror type movies, where, not going to go into detail, but if you've seen a lot of horror movies where a character makes a dumb decision and that causes another decision that causes basically another certain character to get into a bad situation, let's just say it results in that. And so I had some really big issues with that part, and also there's a lot of stuff that you kind of predict as the movie goes along of where it's going, where you can call certain scenes that are happening, and the way that it plays into those cliche tropes that you've seen before. But because I was still invested with where the story was going and everything, it didn't take me out too much, and I was still able to overcome it. And while I did have a big problem with that, with the whole decision stuff they do with the writing, that did bring it down a notch. And with some of the other questionable CGI, that did pretty feel out of place at times. That was another big draw I did kind of have at times, where some of the effects did, like when you do see some of the lion on some CGI, it didn't look like it was rendered properly, and it does look like you're watching like a made-for-TV kind of movie when it comes to certain scenes with the effects. On top of that, it did feel like, now I know there's that saying that goes where you don't want to show too much to kind of lose tension, but there are certain scenes where you could kind of tell that they probably had more depths in mind, or certain things that they wanted to show where they had to cut away and make it off screen. And I think that was just kind of a little minor thing I had, where they didn't really show like a whole lot too much when it comes to the actual animal attacks, because they really could have showcased a lot more with a lot more gore and everything. But that's just kind of just a minor thing, because I get what the movie was trying to do of trying to build it more of its tension, but a little bit more like on screen attacks and everything really would have push a lot more of the brutality of what the lion could do. And so that is one of my other little minor things I had with the film. But other than that, I still thought it was pretty enjoyable. And it's certainly one that I consider, definitely checking out if you want to check it out at like a matinee or something. And I'm going to give the movie a extremely low compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. So, for those of you who have also seen Beast, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.